Hey y'all, it's Jim Wellman. It's May 2021, and I'm here to talk to you about an experiment. Excuse me, an experiment I did to eradicate hive beetles back in 2019 February. So I watched, I think it was on the National Honey Show. This scientist talk about studying hive beetle larvae and hive beetles in a laboratory. Who watched a larva crawl off a lab table, down and went onto the ground, crawled out the lab, out the door, across the parking lot, went into the ground, across the parking lot to pupate. So if you're not familiar with how the hive beetles work, what they'll do, they'll lay their eggs in your hive, the eggs hatch, the larva crawls, worms its way out, crawls down to the ground, goes down the ground to pupate, becomes a hive beetle, crawls back up into your hive and wreaks havoc. Um, Annoys your bees like crazy, can bring them to the point of swarming, just to get out of that awful condition. So I needed to do something. I don't know if it was him, but I guess it doesn't really matter. As a little kid, you've probably done it. You can pour salt on slimy critters and they'll shrivel up and die. It's not a nice thing to do, but you can do it. So I figured, why not pour salt on the ground around the base of my hives? I didn't know if it'd work. I didn't want to do it before asking some people about it. So I went to my local beekeeper organization and I asked people if they'd ever done it before. And I got a bunch of replies like, oh, that's not going to do anything. You're crazy. Nobody'd ever tried it. I think I'm like an R&D kind of person. I like research and development. I like trying things out. I'll try it a million different ways and it won't work at all, but maybe that one time works, and then you've got something that you didn't have before. So in this case, let me show you what I did. I'll be right back. I've got a serious hive beetle problem. Found out yesterday when I came into my hive, and my beetle traps are just absolutely loaded with beetles. This is just 2 of the 4 beetle traps I removed yesterday, and they are loaded with hive beetles. So I'm going to treat with salt as an experiment underneath the hive and the soil. I've raked it all out. I'm going to pour salt on it, work it into the soil, pour more salt on it, get it really saturated with salt, and do a little experiment to see if that'll then kill the beetle larvae. I've read some things where that'll do it. I was about to buy some of that permethrin, but I was just concerned about its effects on the bees. I didn't want to deal with anything killing my bees. I was possibly going to put a screen down over the soil after I treated with permethrin, but before I go that far, I'm going to treat with salt and we'll see what happens. Alright, so as you can see, I poured salt all over the ground out here, surrounded the base of the hives about 3 feet out, because hoping that the larva would crawl down in the ground and pupate, either crawl down in the ground and die because of the salt content, or maybe just not even crawl down in the ground and just be so irritated on the top that maybe they died up top, gave something long enough to, like a predator long enough to come get them. Either way, I had a horrendous hive beetle problem before I did that. I can go in these hives right now. The big hive I went in this weekend, the double deep, and I found maybe 1 or 2 hive beetles, and that was it. So this is 2 years later, and I probably poured salt on the ground all the way through 2019 and maybe a couple times in 2020, but I kind of slowed down to stop doing it. Haven't really done it much out here. But look here, I'm under oak trees. I'm just surrounded by oak trees out here. There's a little sliver, as you can see off in there, right up in here, little sliver of sun. I get, you can see my hives are starting to get some sun out here. I probably get 3 to 4 hours of sunlight every day. Lots of shade. Hive beetles like lots of shade. But like I said, I can go in these hives right now and I don't have a hive beetle problem. The only thing I can attribute that to is putting the salt on the ground. I don't know, maintaining the health of my colony. But the reason I started doing it is because I had such a bad hive beetle problem back in late 2018, that I blamed that on one of my swarms. I had a hive swarm on me in late November of 2018. That's, granted we're in Florida, so it's warm, but that's the winter time. It's not supposed to happen like that. But the hive beetle problem was so bad, I think they just drove them crazy and they had to get out of there. So like I said, I did some thinking, did my salt test. It seems to have worked. I just wanted to pass along that knowledge to you guys. Something you can try. Don't try, call me crazy, but it's worked for me. So let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. If you got any questions about that, by all means, about what I did, by all means ask. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.